It happened in a city drenched in sun and sweat. Fortaleza, Brazil, 2005. A city of beaches and contradictions, where poverty and ambition shared the same narrow streets, and where money flowed like blood through its underground veins. No one in the city or the country could have imagined that one of the most perfect bank robberies in history was already unfolding quietly beneath their feet. I still think about it sometimes, the patience, the precision, the madness that drove those men, how they dug through earth and concrete, under a city alive with noise and traffic, while no one suspected a thing. It was the kind of plan that belongs in fiction, except it wasn't. It was real, too real. It started months before August. A group of men, led by Luis Fernando Ribeiro, known on the streets as Fernandinho, had an idea so bold, it sounded like insanity. Robbed the Banco Central branch in Fortaleza, Ceará. Not by storming it, not with guns or violence, but from below, from the underground. Literally. Fernandinho was clever, not impulsive. He had the quiet intensity of someone who believed his mind could outsmart systems. And in a way, he was right. He gathered others who shared that same hunger. Antonio Josivan Alves dos Reis, nicknamed Alemão, a man who could organize logistics like a military officer. Raimundo Lourinho da Silva, known for his mechanical genius. Edson Ribeiro, who knew how to move money without leaving trails. Each of them brought a piece of the puzzle. Each believed they could change their lives forever. They rented a small house 2 blocks away from the Banco Central building. A modest, ordinary-looking property painted green, with a cheerful sign on the front, Grama Sintética, Lawn Company. The neighbors thought it was a landscaping business. Every day, trucks came and went, hauling dirt, tools and pipes. They smiled, waved, acted friendly. The deception was perfect. Under that false front, they worked day and night. What they built was not a shop, but a tunnel, 250 meters long, 5 meters below the surface, reinforced with wooden beams, steel supports, lighting and ventilation. It took them 3 months to finish. I try to imagine what it must have been like down there, humid air, the sound of drills echoing, the danger of collapse, always pressing in. Every shovelful of soil was a heartbeat closer to million. The smell of earth, sweat, gasoline from the generators. It must have felt like descending into another world. Meanwhile, the bank above went about its days in quiet normalcy. Guards rotated, cash deliveries came and went, and the vault sat in silence, fortified, air-conditioned, thought to be untouchable. But Fernandinho and his men knew better. They had studied blueprints, bribed contacts, even measured seismic vibrations to make sure their digging wouldn't be noticed. Their plan wasn't madness, it was methodical genius. By early August, the tunnel met the concrete base of the bank's vault. Fernandinho ordered silence. No mistakes now. They took a weekend when the bank would be empty, and made their move. That night, the city slept under warm rain. Inside the tunnel, flashlights flickered off metal beam. They broke through the final slab of concrete, 1 meter thick, using electric saws and drills wrapped in cloth to muffle the sound. And then, they were in. The vault of the Banco Central, a room meant to protect billions, was breached by a hole from the earth itself. They didn't rush, they didn't panic, they worked calmly, like surgeons. For hours, they hauled out bags of cash, real, official, printed Brazilian real banknotes, bundled for destruction, meaning the bills were untraceable. By dawn, 3.5 tons of cash, worth around 160 million reais, roughly $70 million USD, had vanished into the underground. When Monday came, the bank opened as usual. Employees noticed nothing strange until late morning. Only when someone checked the vault did the horror sink in. The floor was hollow, the money gone, and there was a hole where solid ground used to be. Panic followed. News spread like wildfire. Brazil's biggest bank heist, maybe the biggest in the world. The country froze. TV helicopters swarmed Fortaleza. Police cordoned off the area. Inside that empty vault, investigators found only dirt, tire marks, and the faint smell of diesel from the generators used underground. It was, by every measure, a perfect crime, but perfection never lasts. Within weeks, small cracks began to appear. One of the men, Alimang, couldn't resist the urge to spend. New cars, cash deals, flashy behavior. It drew attention. Police tracked one vehicle to a suspect's home, and then the dominoes began to fall. Raids uncovered buried cash, weapons, and the faint trail of the tunnel's soil. Arrests followed. One, then another, then several. But the money, most of it was gone. Out of the 60 million reais, less than 10% was ever recovered. The rest dissolved into the Brazilian underworld, laundered, hidden, or lost forever. Fernandinho himself became a ghost. Some said he fled north. Others claimed he was killed by partners who wanted a bigger share. Rumors turned to myths. The men who had shared shovels and sweat now turned on each other. Several of them would later die, shot, kidnapped, betrayed. The tunnel that once symbolized genius became a graveyard of trust. When I think of that tunnel now, I picture it empty, silent, decaying under the streets of Fortaleza, the air thick with dust, the walls collapsing in on the memory of what happened. It's more than a hole, it's a scar, a monument to human obsession. Police later reconstructed the plan in detail. The fake company, the careful disposal of excavated soil disguised as landscaping waste, the precise engineering. They found that the robbers even installed a pulley system and carts underground to move the cash efficiently. It wasn't luck, it was mastery. But mastery without discipline becomes madness. Even those who weren't caught couldn't enjoy their fortune. Some were hunted by gangs, others extorted by corrupt officers who knew too much. One man was kidnapped and killed for refusing to reveal where his share was hidden. Another vanished entirely. The Banco Central heist became a story that Brazilians whispered about, half admiration, half disbelief. The scale, the ingenuity, the cinematic absurdity of it all. It wasn't just a robbery. It was a mirror held up to a nation struggling with corruption, inequality, and the illusion of security. I remember an old police officer once said, "You can steal money, but you can't steal people." And he was right. The heist was flawless in execution, but it destroyed everyone involved. By 2008, more than 30 suspects had been arrested. Some confessed, others stayed silent. But still, no one ever found the mastermind who coordinated it all. Not really. Fernandinho remained a shadow, mentioned in files, whispered in interviews, but never truly seen again. Years later, documentaries and books would revisit the story, painting it as both legendary and tragic. They called it the Tunnel of Dreams, the crime of the century, the heist beneath the earth. Each retelling added something new, but the core never changed. The idea that human brilliance, when driven by greed, can become its own downfall. Sometimes I wonder what went through their minds that final night, when they stood in the vault surrounded by mountains of cash, their hands shaking, hearts pounding. Did they feel triumph, fear? Did they realize that moment would define the rest of their life? Maybe they thought they'd gotten away with it. Maybe in that darkness, covered in sweat and dust, they believed they had beaten the system. But time doesn't forget. Fortaleza has rebuilt since then. The old Banco Central building still stands, its vault sealed, reinforced and monitored with new technology. Yet beneath it lies the memory of that tunnel, hidden under layers of asphalt, and silent. Whenever I see footage of the police walking through that narrow underground passage, their flashlights bouncing off dirt walls, I get chills, because what they were really walking through wasn't just a tunnel, it was the anatomy of ambition. Every wooden beam, every meter of earth, moved, was a heartbeat in one of the most astonishing crimes of our time. And still, the money remains missing. Maybe it lies buried in some forgotten farmland. Maybe it was burned, lost, scattered. Or maybe it sits in silence somewhere, untouched, a ghost of currency, waiting. I still wonder how they pulled it off with such precision, how no one above heard, how no vibration raised suspicion, how the city continued to sleep while fortune was stolen from beneath its feet. It's almost poetic, the kind of crime that exposes both the genius and the fragility of the human mind. In the end, the Banco Central heist wasn't about money, it was about illusion. The illusion that control can last, that success can be buried, that we can outsmart consequence. Because even as the tunnel collapses, and the names fade from headlines, The question remains, who truly won that night in Fortaleza, and who's still paying for it in silence?